Agenda.
Good morning and welcome to AM Agenda. I'm Ashley Gillen. The WikiLeaks saga has hit the Gillard government hard this morning, with documents revealing that Kevin Rudd urged the US to be prepared to use force against China, quote, if everything goes wrong. The former Prime Minister also apparently indicated he was willing to offer forward troops to help Pakistan clamp down on terrorists in the country. This morning the opposition is calling on the Prime Minister to urgently outline her approach to China, but many experts are playing down Mr Rudd's comments, saying his brutal approach to China would come as no surprise to Beijing. Joining me this morning for some reaction on our panel of politicians, the Labor Senator Doug Cameron. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Ashley.
And joining us from Melbourne, the Shadow Minister for Disability, Senator Mitch Fifield. Good morning.
Good morning, Ashley.
Doug Cameron, let's start with you. Kevin Rudd was built up to be this expert on China. We saw that most analysts thought he offended China when it came to his handling of the Stern Hu case. He referred to the Chinese as rat effers. We're not going to say it on national television, but quite rude words used about China's handling of negotiations in Copenhagen, now urging the US to be prepared to use force against China. How do you think that's going to go down?
Well, look, I think, diplomacy is a tough game. And international relationships is extremely complex situation for governments to deal with, especially when it comes to the rise of China. And I think the main thing in terms of China is that they would understand that there is concern around the globe about their rise and their capacities, and that's natural. And I can't comment on the details of the leaked document, because that is a document that shouldn't be out in the public arena. And I think it is important that diplomats can talk frankly and fearlessly to each other about developing issues internationally.
Mitch Fifield, what's your take on this? Do you think that the Chinese would have known that this is Australia's approach and that the US would be ready for this sort of force to be taken against it if things don't go well with the relationship?
Well, I think the Chinese probably already had a pretty good idea of Kevin Rudd's view of them by virtue of things like his comments at the Copenhagen Climate Change Summit, which you referred to before, where he spoke about Chinese rat ... He does have an unhelpful turn of phrase. We also know that he referred to the UN Secretary-General, Ban Ki-moon, as Spanky Banky, so he certainly does have form. A lot of the comments which we've seen in the WikiLeaks cables have been what you might term sort of gossip style. I think those who are familiar with diplomatic cables would be well aware that they're often quite colourful, because part of the purpose is to give politicians a sense of the flavour and the colour of particular individuals and particular nations. But Kevin Rudd's comments are of a fundamentally different character. They actually go to the substance of our relationship with China. I think there are two explanations for his comments. He was either indicating what Australia's true foreign policy disposition is towards China, or he was merely seeking to big note himself and to try and impress Secretary Clinton. I think it's incumbent on the Prime Minister to come out and declare which of those two it was. Was Kevin Rudd simply trying to big note himself, or was he indicating something about Australia's foreign policy?
Doug Cameron, what's your view on that? Was it one of the two, and do you expect Julia Gillard will now be under pressure to come out and explain how Australia does sit on this issue?
Well, I think Julia Bishop's playing politics with this, and I have to say to you, the main problem for our future relationship with China is not something that's said in some leaked document. It's the xenophobia that's been articulated by people like Barnaby Joyce against China. We must engage with China. China's extreme.
Come on, Doug. These are words from Kevin Rudd's mouth.
Well,
we're talking about.
This is where the coalition have been going on China for some time. I sit in the Economics Committee in the Senate. I've seen the response that they've had to China, and I must say it's xenophobia, and it is not a good look.
And is that feeding into this debate now, do you think, Mitch Fifield?
Not at all. I mean, I don't know how we've somehow got onto the subject of xenophobia when what we're talking about are the words which have apparently come out of Kevin Rudd's mouth, which indicate Kevin Rudd's attitude towards China. Now, there's a very easy way for this to be cleared up. The Prime Minister can come out, should come out, and indicate whether what Kevin Rudd said is indicating a change in Australia's position in relation to China, or if it was merely Kevin Rudd trying to big note himself with Secretary Clinton. I mean, after all, these are the words of the then Prime Minister, who just happens to now be Australia's Foreign Minister. So this is significant, and it's important that the Prime Minister clarifies.
Looking at some of the comments that Mr Rudd made on Pakistan, it looks like he offered forward Australian troops to help Pakistan if that was formally requested. But, of course, we know that Kevin Rudd didn't want to send more troops to Afghanistan. We did see a small increase a couple of years ago, but none since, even though a lot of military experts are saying we really should be sending more troops to Afghanistan. Is there a disconnect going on there, Doug Cameron?
Well, look, I think when you talk about Pakistan, you've got to talk about Afghanistan, and they are both inextricably linked. And I think the biggest mistake in that area of overseas diplomacy and overseas action was taking our eye off the ball some years ago when we rushed in to look for weapons of mass destruction that weren't there in Iraq, that when we disengaged from Afghanistan, and we're paying a price for that now. I think Afghanistan and Pakistan are really important areas in terms of our future security, and I support the government's position.
Mitch Fifield, do you think that the government may need to re-look at our troop contribution in Afghanistan, considering the comments that we've seen from Kevin Rudd on possible commitments to Pakistan?
Well, the issue here really is can you believe what the government says? The government said at that time when Kevin Rudd was Prime Minister that Australia didn't have any excess capacity, that we couldn't deploy any additional troops to Afghanistan. What was the truth? What Kevin Rudd was saying publicly, or what he was saying privately to Secretary Clinton?
Tanks into Afghanistan. Don't lecture us about Afghanistan. Putting tanks into Afghanistan.
The issue here is truthfulness. Can you believe what Kevin Rudd says? Now, it's all well and good for the government to say that these are diplomatic cables and they shouldn't be commented upon. Well, obviously, yes, that's true in the normal course of events. But there is a disconnect between what the government's been saying publicly and what is in these cables, and the government needs to clarify that.
Doug Cameron, what do you think about Julian Assange, the guy behind this WikiLeaks website? He's saying now that he feels abandoned by the Australian government. Is there anything in you that feels good on him? He's getting out there, he's providing transparency, the whole right to know argument. Should the government be doing more to protect him?
Just before I go to that, I just want to make the point clear. You can't take seriously anything the coalition says about Afghanistan. They're the people that want to put tanks into Afghanistan, and they were seen as an absolute joke in that proposal. As far as Julian Assange is concerned, Julian Assange, he's an Australian citizen. I'm not sure that he's broken any Australian laws at the moment. If he has broken laws overseas, then he's entitled to support as every other Australian citizen gets from the Australian government.
But what about what he's done? Is there a part of you that thinks good on him?
Well, I think there's plenty of people around the country and around the world waiting with bated breath as to the next leak. But whether that's a good thing in terms of long-term international security is another matter. And I think, these documents shouldn't have been leaked, and I just don't know what the legal situation is for Julian Assange.
Mitch Fifield, what's your take on that? Do you think that there was an argument that these WikiLeaks should be out there in the public domain?
Sure. Well, just on the issue of tanks, Doug might want to update himself and check on the US disposition towards tanks. But coming back to Mr Assange, look, obviously what he's done is unhelpful. It would have been better that he hadn't done it. I'm not sure if he has broken any laws. There's always a temptation to shoot the messenger in this case. We are clearly aware, as is the US, that their own cables, I think, have been a little too widely distributed within their own networks, and they're taking action to address that. But I come back to what's as important is the actual substance of what is in these communications, and we've seen today that Kevin Rudd is saying something very, very different publicly to what he said to the US, and Julia Gillard needs to clarify that.
Yeah, look, and on that issue of tanks, which I know you've both alluded to there, I think actually Mr Fifield has a point, because I think at the last UN meeting there was a report that was put forward to the UN saying that tanks was actually a good idea, and Jim Molan, the former commander in Iraq, that's been an issue that he's been pushing for some time as well, and yeah, that's probably...
Former commanders can push what they like, but you've got to take advice from the commanders who are there at the moment, and they're not asking for tanks.
Doug's got the old talking points.
Okay, I think that's another issue for another day. Let's move on. We are going to look at some other domestic political issues just after this break.